Okay, who in here has grandparents that are getting up there in age? Okay, how old are yours?
85.
Okay, well, does it ever bother you when they're driving out on interstates and stuff? Does it ever concern you?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, well, my grandfather right here is 89 years old. I call him Papa, and he thinks that he is completely fine to maneuver a vehicle in Atlanta. He even told me the other day that he wants to come visit me in Auburn, and honestly, the fact of him driving through downtown Atlanta to come see me terrifies me. Many of us have either had or have seen accidents happen due to elderly driving. There's nothing against the elderly. I love my grandfather. However, I think that there are many ways to prevent serious accidents from occurring due to poor elderly driving. After all, I want my grandfather around longer. So now that you know my concerns about my grandfather, let me tell you why I'm here to talk to you today. Statistics show that drivers over the age of 70 have increased in numbers recently, and so have the accident rates. In the U.S. Census Bureau Statistical Abstract of the United States published in 2011, during the year of 2009, people in accidents ages 19 and under averaged 8.1%, while elderly drivers 75 and up averaged 7.9%. There is not much of a difference between these two ages at all. In a New York Times article, Elderly Drivers Fail a Test, written by Paula Spann on May 27, 2011, Paula writes about driving tests being administered to elderly people. She stated in her article that those aged 70 to 74 averaged less than one critical error during the nearly hour-long excursion, but those ages older than 85 averaged almost 4. Their most common mistake by far was not checking their blind spot. As people age, they feel stiffness in their neck, making them unable to turn their head and check their blind spots. They also do not have as much arm strength as they used to have, and they also may experience leg pain that might make shifting pedals more difficult for them. Elderly people tend to be on more medications that may affect their driving ability, and their eyesight is poor, which means that they do not have the ability to react as quickly as they used to. As of now, Georgia does not regulate the renewing of driver licenses for the elderly. Anyone can have their license just mailed to them, and they do not need to come in for a yearly checkup or be retested to ensure that their driving is still safe. So now let me tell you the best way in my mind to solve this growing problem. The only way to solve this growing problem is to enforce driving tests for those over the age of 75 in Georgia. These tests would mainly consist of 3 things: a vision test, a hearing test, and a physical driving test that an in-car 16-year-old takes to get their driver's license. The elderly should make sure that they wear corrective lenses if they need them and that they are up to date. Now, I know that many people, especially senior citizens, would say that it would be inhumane or discriminatory against elderly generation to say things like this, considering the fact that middle-aged groups do not have to be retested on an annual basis. However, if young drivers must be tested to make sure that they are ready to drive a car, shouldn't older people, say at the age of 90, be retested to make sure that they can still drive a car? According to Peter Storm's article in the Boston Globe, elderly drivers don't live test-free in New Hampshire, published on August 4, 2009. Seniors last year made up to nearly 50% of all licensed drivers, but were involved in only 9% of crashes. This is because they implemented driving tests in the state of New Hampshire for those over the age of 75. This just proves how much this program could bring success to the state of Georgia. In a USA Today article written by Anthony DeBarris on May 2, 2007, DeBarris wrote that from ages 75 to 84, the rate of about 3 deaths per 100 million miles driven is equal to the death rate of teenage drivers. For drivers 85 and older, the fatality rate skyrockets from nearly 4 times higher than that for teens. If the driver does fail a test, however, it does not mean that they are no longer independent. Nobody should feel as their mobility is being stripped from them, considering the fact that there are other many ways to get around depending on where you live. This could be taxi, bus, bicycle, anything. I strongly believe that these tests will decrease the number of deaths annually. And as stated earlier, everyone ages at different rates, so most people will still pass the test. Most importantly, we need to not be afraid to voice our concerns about our elderly loved ones poor driving. If their driving is not safe, they can injure or kill someone, maybe even themselves. So now that you know my solution, let me tell you just how much this will help the community. There are many ways in which driving tests for the elderly would help the community as a whole. And there are also many dangers that could occur if they are not implemented. As for the positives, these tests would help keep elderly drivers who cannot properly maneuver a vehicle off the roads. Accident rates would decrease drastically, and fewer lives would be claimed as a result of elderly motor vehicle accidents. As stated in the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration's Traffic Safety Facts 2008 data accumulated in the year 2008, there were 31 million older licensed drivers in 2007, a 19% increase from 1997. If these tests are not put in place by law, by the year 2030, it's estimated that our current driver fatality rate for those 85 and up will skyrocket from 5.6 million to 9.6 million. Let's think about this logically. The elderly drivers have the baby boomers. They're going to be reaching those elderly stages in life. Imagine how many accidents can be prevented if this law is enacted. So now that you know how much the solution can help the community as a whole, let me conclude. With that being said, it is our turn as Georgia citizens to voice our opinion on this growing issue. These are our loved ones involved, and if you're anything like me, I know that you would do anything for them. Go to the Georgia Department of Driver Services and voice your concern about elderly drivers now being retested. You can find their number and their address on the website, dds.ga.gov. And you can also write to our Governor, Nathan Deal, as well to voice your concerns. Nothing can be accomplished if we don't take a stand for safe elderly driving. Until a law is put into place, it is our responsibility to tell our elders when it is time for them to give up the keys. Look for the warning signs, and when it is time, talk to them. But most importantly, remind them that you are only doing this because you love them and you're concerned about them. After all, my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, would not want to give up his keys. But after hearing how concerned I am for his safety, I think he might just change his mind.